Peace. What's happening? What's up, y'all? NFOMURK here. Back at it with y'all. Top of the day. Top of the day. Happy hope everybody's prosperous, happy, enjoying themselves, being the best you can be. Which would bring me into today's topic. Who is the devil? Right. Hope no one is afraid of the title because some of us have been trained to stay away from certain words. They have put an emotional filter. They had made a way to use your emotions against you, and that will be inside of what we're talking about today about the devil, right? So, who is the devil? So, we're going to begin with a few definitions, and we're going to get into who is God in that regard, because then obviously we had to figure out, we're trying to figure out something that we probably don't even know yet. And the way a lot of stuff is being communicated in like negative way, meaning they don't tell you exactly, they just tell you what it's not as opposed to what it is and stuff like that. The devil's a lie. They tell you like the outline of something, and then you fill in the inside. You add the detail to the outline, right? Which was like part of what I was saying about in the paradigm video. Okay, that the devil is in the detail, and that's why I highlighted that particular word, the devil, because it's in the detail, and there's something about that connection that once we try, who are truth seekers, trying to see what it is, we can now find an appropriate place to put these definitions in our paradigm, so that every word that we have will be working in conjunction to the reality that we're trying to build. All right. So, who is the devil? Let's look at the spelling. Right, the word devil, right, is has the same letters as the word lived, and it's just backwards. So if one was to say that you're living wrong, right, you will be considered a devil. Remember the word sin, which is like synonymous with evil and devil and sin, right? The word sin is to miss the mark, right? So living wrong, you will be missing the mark. Uh, so you can see how that correlates with one another. Not to mention that the word devil and lived have the same numerical value. So if we enter gematria, you would see what I'm saying. How not only that word, but other words do. But when you see for sure by having the same amount of words, not just sounding like it, but having the same letters and so forth, just flip them over and you have another word like God and dog. So if you live wrong and you were in your God sense, you will be a dog, and you will be in that sense because you're not functioning to the highest of your capacity. You'll be living out animalistic instincts will be driving you in a higher thought in intellect, right? So the devil, in certain dialogues, certain understandings, the word devil has derived from the word double. So the double and devil have a correlation, right? So I think when we go into Spanish, it goes into Diablo, and you have root words DIA, right? And that's like beginning of diagonal, because in certain texts, the devil refers to as Satan as the adversary, as across from, right? So, or the accuser. So, the accuser would stand across from you or to accuse you. He's on the other side, right? So, um, this is how we get the words like diagonal and double. So when you look at let's take a look at that double for a second, because when you look at what we would consider, my daughter, I was telling my daughter about this before. She said, "Yeah, when you said that makes sense." Because I think about two-faced people. And I was like, "Damn, that's crazy," because I was more into the language than the person. But you're right, two-faced people, double language, and so forth, right? So Minister Farrakhan gave us a definition of the devil, and I'm paraphrasing here, and I think he said that which is crafted from the original. So we also see there be two: the original and then the variant, right? Which would mimic the original, but would be lacking certain things that would be evident on it, right? So this is the reality that we're in. So we see that it definitely has the double is in there, right? It's in there, the double. So when let's go to another definition before we start to roll them all together. All right. Now, when it comes down to you, All is energy, right? And we are we are a swirling of our own pocket, a gap of energy that exists in another gap that allow life to take place, right? Hope that didn't get too complex, but it's real simple to understand. But all is energy, right? Everything that's going on is energy. Sound, light, um, and matter is all under a frequency which is being held in that particular state by the energy in which it has. Right? Hope that made it more understandable. Right? So now us as a supreme being, the peak of the pyramid, the peak of creation, the peak of intelligence, right? Us representing that and us knowing that all is energy. That means that when we look at energy per se, we look at a wire, right? And I think I went through this before on one of my other shows, but here goes real fast, right? So we generate electricity, right? And that's coming from, let's say, the mountain. They blow the mountain cap, and then that makes like a nuclear plant where Homer and them work at. And nuclear plant has to stay cool, so they needs to be near water, and it's very radiation and all kinds of like death, if you will, kinds of in pockets, those areas, right? So it's not really next to civilization per se. So now it's being ran into the city via metal, right? The most so the noble of the metals are like platinum working down. It's probably more, right, as of today. But at one time, platinum, gold, copper, aluminum, and so forth, right? And those could also be the conduit inside of a wire that takes the energy towards the thing. The energy now, in order for the energy to maintain as much, this is where um, quantum fusion and all that comes into. But without getting confused, just to keep it on energy. So coming from the generator, coming from the power plant, it travels on the wire. As it travels on the wire, there are things working against it, and that's called resistance. Certain things like heat, distance, and the conductor of it works against the flow of electricity. So we find the best conductors, boom, and then we try to put generators in the middle of that ride. So as I say, every 150 feet, you need to put a generator. And that's why you see generators every so like, however you see them in that rhythmic state, because that's the only way we can stir up the energy again and shoot it back out, catch it, stir it up and shoot it back out, because it's losing as it's coming down, right? So the generator puts more in and sends more out. That's how it works. So that resistance that is working against the said energy will be considered the devil. Us could be that electricity that's inside of the environment, and our own dreams and manifestation is the destination for where we're going, right? And then whatever is working against us, time, people, money, lies, so forth, right, will become the devil, right? So let's go down to the next one. Who is God? Right? Because if we think that they tell us that God and the devil are like adversaries, right? Here we go again. The adversary across from, right? Diagonal, the accuser, right? So God would be the said opposite of the devil, right? So who is God? You and I are that God in which we are talking about. And our perception, right, from our two eyes double automatically, double devil. Then they go in, they take in the light, it goes into the darkness and reprojects the light. That light bearing phenomenon they call Lucifer. Lucifer translates to the light bearer. So Satan and the devil in the text tend to be paired together, but not necessarily Lucifer. So the devil and Satan share a name and not really a name, a definition, but not the name. Lucifer shares the emotional connection, but not the definition of what it is. So simply put, Lucifer means the light bearer. In that word Lucifer, we get the word um, lux, um, uh, and so forth of that, which translates to light. And then we get lux, which is like luxury. So you think about luxury, you think about shiny objects, diamonds, and so forth, right? So us being God, what do we feed off? We feed off information, the truth. right? The truth is what we stand on. That's the thing that we consume the most, right? Is information. My baby girl just woke up. She about to interrupt the show. I wonder if I should continue or should I pause. I don't know, but I'll figure it out. So the devil, where was I at? Oh, the information. So we consume information. We assume out of good faith that the information that we take in is the truth, but the truth tends to change depending on your perception. That becomes like the double. You have to now have a double understanding of the reality. Yeah, we have a double understanding of the reality. All right, hold on. Yeah. So, the double understanding of the reality, right? So, going down, we're gonna go into God, right? The definition of God, because a lot of us use God um, open-ended, no real um, precise understanding of the terminology, right? And God is because of that. God does have, depending on how we use it, does have multiple meanings, right? So one meaning that you think the easiest one to go with right now would be universal, right? Like, so when we speak of God, sometimes we might think about the universe and how the universe tends to treat everyone the same, right? So that's that godly connection with the universe, right? The way we understand the universe as covering all, right? Number two, I should fear no man but God, right? So now you see fear and God kind of going into one another. We hear that in prayer. People say that. I think I heard that. It's like a famous thing the Muslims say, I fear no man but Allah, and so forth like that. So fear in God has a thing there towards the emotion, right? Now, Jay-Z said in one of his songs, I'm not sure if he got it from somewhere else or this is his actual sayings, but fear is the only fear is the only God. Getting you to fear me is the only job, right? So when you got fear and God going together like that, um, it leaves, especially with fear, right? It leaves the fear makes easy to control someone who's under fear. Any form of fear makes a person who's under fear easy to control because this goes into pray, right? Prey, right? I'll get into that. We're just going to put a footnote on that right there. Going into the definitions of God. Now, there's another definition of God, that which that sustains you, right? So, water, air, money, um, sex, everything now becomes deified because it sustains humanity, right? So, like in Greek text, you would hear, "Oh, Aphrodite, the goddess of this." This person, the goddess of beauty. This person, the god, they got the Kama Sutra. This is embedded into the Kama Sutra, not like quickly switch, but to go to another culture, the Karma Sutra is like in bed with yoga, meditation, and sex, and all that's embedded in there. So the sex is still a sacred act because it yields life. We are sacred beings, and what makes us sacred is that life that we possess that we do not know how to necessarily recreate. It becomes a gift, it becomes a phenomenon, especially to people who cannot and wish they could, and then they really see, you really feel how it is because some of us take it for granted. We don't really study it and understand it for what it really is, right? So that which that sustains you and fear, to take away some of the fluff off of God, right? That which that sustains you, right? So this goes to add proof to this, right? To have in the Christian thing, to have the daily bread. The daily bread is synonymous with the word of God because bread and water could sustain a human being for a long time. No other thing could do that. So they correlated the bread with God because it sustains you. So God is something that sustains the human. So because of that, God would work for you. You don't necessarily work for God, depending on how you look at it, right? So um, then fear, right? Now, when you look at this reality, a lot of police of the other race tend to kill the minorities, the golden people, right, at alarming rates. And then one of the biggest things is that they're afraid. They're afraid of us, right? And this goes into the way the reality is projected on both sides, right? Um, Now, really quick, look at this mind play. This is the only way if you just understand it, because if you're in it, it's hard to understand it if you're in the middle of it. So if you could see another and then coming into it, and you can see what it takes, right? Hopefully this makes sense. If that didn't make sense, certain movies like Coming to America, or let's say Family Matters or whatever, they have like Steve Urkel. Let's go Coming to America. Hopefully everybody's seen that, right? So he's coming from Africa, coming to America, right? So Africa has culture in a certain way, a norm in which they communicate, and the way they treat the opposite sex, right? So when he comes to America, everything is not what it is, right? And they telling them to call a woman a bitch. And then coming to America too, they ran that same dialogue. So what that does is showing you that America has a preset, right, of the way that the black male should conduct himself and the way he should treat and talk to the women. That is not coming from the mind of a black male. That is coming from the mind of a white male, right, of another religious persuasion, right? So, if you understand what I'm saying. So this is what we call social programming. This makes people assume an identity, and this works inside. Right, this works inside when a young man is trying to figure out who he is, and he's watching TV, and they telling you should walk like this. Joe Biden went on the radio and said, if you don't vote for him, you're not black. So there's little appetites that the enemy would give you that will build up you in a representation in which is not really you. You understand? So we have to be very mindful when you have an emotional connection to a word that they can use to pull you into a whole different mindset, which will rob you of you. Okay? So it's funny that we sustain the reality. They're studying us, right? They're studying the blackness. They refer to it as antimatter. They refer to it as the microscopic world. They refer to it as the underworld. They refer to it as subconscious. They refer to it as predictive behavior. They refer to it as the woman. They refer to it as quantum physics. Okay, these are all the different attributes that tie into the unknown. The unknown is black on the yin yang chart, and black is what we personify. So therefore, they're studying us, right? At this point, we should all be keeping up at this point. Hopefully, I shouldn't have to keep breaking down words as I'm trying to run into another point, but I don't mind doing it, but just in case. All right. Um, so good God, this, that, third, fair. Okay, cool. So now back to prayer. All right. Now PREY is like to prey on something, predator and prey. Right. So remember on a conversation on many things, I was telling you about a Masonic book that had no vowels, and that came from the walls the Egyptians when they realized that they didn't have no vowels in their text, and the reason why is because vowels bring life to the word. So there's an energetic principle that's locked in to PRY, right? Right. So like pride, but because you put a vowel in the middle, it changes something, right? So when you put the A, right, it's pray. Like, oh my God, please don't let this lion eat me, right? But the lion is preying on you. So let's go through and get your prayer answered. You're running from the lion, right? And you're praying that it doesn't get you, right? And somehow it gets you, but it doesn't eat you. It's talking to you because it's answering your prayer because you are afraid of it making the lion God, right? So the lion would probably strike a deal with you to get other deers to come his way. You understand what I'm saying? That's the only way your prayers will be answered because I'm feeding off you. But I could use you to help bring other deers to me, and that will keep you alive. But there's no other way for your prayer to come true because if you're praying for the predator to not do something, the predator can still have the predator's nature because it's in his DNA to be a predator. Understand? So pray and pray. And the reality knows this. I seen a movie the other day called Pray for the Devil. And sonically it sounds like someone should be praying for him like he's in danger, this guy's coming today. And that's probably what it probably was spelled on the TV too. But it can also mean pray for the devil, like something the devil can eat. Understand? And the TV loves to call shows loves to play in this demonic realm because they understand the codes in which they're talking about you. So when we go back into the title of the show, Who is the Devil? Right? Now they have a book called the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary. Right? Um, I bought this because I thought I'm dyslexic, so when I bought it, I thought it was just a metaphysical Bible. Like I didn't know it was related to the Bible. At the time, I had certain issues with the Bible, and so I didn't really was I was disappointed in the purchase, to be honest, right? But my mom bought it and she liked it, so I kind of find out there's a few interesting words in here and definitions, and that's in the Bible, and they're telling you the metaphysical definition of these words in the Bible. So when you read the Bible and you see these words, you can possibly have a better definition and how this word is being used in the Bible with this definition, as opposed to just reading it for face value and think that you assume from the tradition train that you was on all these time, right? So the definition of devil in the Bible goes that devil signifies the mass of thoughts that have been built up in conscious through many generations of earthly experience and crystallized into what may be termed human personality or carnal mind. Another name of devil is sense consciousness. All thoughts in one that fight against and are adverse to truth belong to the state of mind that metaphysicians call devil. Now, it's funny because as I was doing research for it, I had my own. The double on devil is what spawned me to talk about it, right? But I didn't have enough stuff, so I did some research. And then I was going through all my books, and I was looking for the book that I actually seen where the double and devil correlate with each other. I couldn't find it for the time to make the video in a timely fashion. So I Googled it. Now, remember, I told you that when you want to find something, Google it with the definition. So if you type in the meaning of the devil, all types of easy, different answers are going to pop up. But if you type in devil meaning double and click that up and see what text and bring that up and see how to get there, you're going to see that it translates to a different language like Spanish or Greek. I think, all of them Greek, Spanish, and Italian, some of them share similar um, word structuring, right? So we end up getting into Diablo, and then Diablo goes into diagonal, and diagonal goes into a cross, and so forth, and accuser, and so forth, right? So even in the Bible, when Jesus goes to Mount Meru, see, this is all you. Mount Meru is you, right? That's the mountain is the head, right? The good thought and the bad thought. So Jesus is on the mountain. He's looking forward and to the earth, to the world, and Lucifer or the devil. I don't think it was Satan. Oh no, it was Satan. It was either Satan or the devil. Remember, we said they're the same, right? It's just different names, but they're the same definition. So we could assume it's the same energetic principle that they're talking about, right? Now Jesus is on the mountain and he's looking forward, right? And the devil says, "If you bow before me, I will give you all of this which is promised to me." Right? So God or the universe promised the earthly thing to the devil. And the devil told Jesus, if he bows before me, the earthly things would be, I would give that to you because that was what's promised to me. And Jesus says, get behind me, Satan. So at a certain point, when you grow up with this information, you start looking for correspondence, right? Now, remember, I was telling you on Paradigm, how do I know stuff is true and so forth like that? Because it can be illustrated. So there was an illustration going on there. The mountain on top, they're looking in a direction, and then he says, get behind me. So that means that the front view, the remember Farrakhan said the original copy is the God part. Then the draft off the original, right, is the devil or the double. So when we look at something, that thing that we set our eyes on is the original state in which we see it. And then that comes to our eyes via light, right? That's not real. And it comes into our eyes and then gets reprojected into this darkness that our brain and our mind lives in, and it gets reprojected in there into what we want to see as it is. That no, that may sound crazy, but as we want to see as it is. So there's certain things that you see inside of what you're looking at, but don't pay it any mind because that's not where your mind is at. And then when somebody runs it back and say, "Yo, look at this," and you be like, "Oh shit, yeah, damn, he did have a white beater on," or "Damn, that is a picture back there," or whatever it is that you didn't really notice because you would think your mind was on something else. And no matter how many times you watch it, your mind will keep doing what it's been doing, and somebody got to come outside of it, point it to you. You're like, "Oh yeah, that's pretty interesting." So when you realize that this has correspondence, now we're dealing with inside the head. They're looking at the original, and then it comes in. So the reason why I'm assuming, right, that Jesus or the devil was promised that because that's just the superficial value. That's just what it looks like on the thing. That's why he said, "What benefits a man to sell his soul, but to gain the world but loses his soul," right? Because for me to tie in to the first rendering of something, the earthly, the stagnant view on things, and for me to buy that as it is, knowing that there's more behind it, it would be doing me and that thing an injustice, right? And because Jesus is the ideal human, the ideal, the peak of consciousness. That's why they show you. That's why they say, "What would Jesus do?" Because in this peak of consciousness, you will be tested in all types of angles in order to see if you really are who you say you are, right? So the devil signifies. I thought that I like that definition from the Metaphysical Bible. Um, it signifies the masses of thought that has been built up in conscious through many generations of earthly experience and crystallized into what may be termed human personality or carnal mind, right? And that state of mind that is what makes you the devil, right? Because it's resisting the truth because of whatever angle you think is the truth, and now when the real truth appears, you look at it like it's the devil and you stay away from it and you treat it as such, right? Now, what got me here? Um, so the paradigm, I realized that if I was to analyze everything I was saying since on my YouTube channel since now, I've been pretty much saying the same thing, but I've been finding other ways to get in. Some of the stuff is new because it has to fit in order to get expounded upon later, right? So in the beginning, I'm definitely was trying to change the way people were seeing the reality, which is technically a paradigm shift by adding more definitions or a new definition or a definition period to words that you thought you knew the definition to. And some of these definitions aren't my definitions unless I say this is how I interpret this word, right? So a lot of these words I'm looking up, I'm going in, I'm doing the etymology, doing all of that. And there's another word we're going to talk about in sometime soon called gematria. I've been meaning to do that and get into that and dabble into that real fast. I'm not none of this stuff I'm totally an expert on, but I'm intrigued, and you never know what it could do to you from the numbers. Some people naturally have a thing for numbers but don't know why. Some of us just have a thing for words. Some of us are just wondering why do they call it this? Why 3/5 of a man? Why stuff like that. So hopefully throughout this conversation and prior conversations, I answered questions that you didn't think anyone had the answer to. It just might have just been stuff that was nagging you, right? So that's how it does for me. So hopefully that helps out. So the reason that got me here is because a few months back, Black Lives Matter was the thing, right? Then, with the emotional connection with us seeing people that they coined black people die on television, right? Um, and the emotional connection that it did to the viewer, right? Because it was on television. It, the people who control the television knew that that was money waiting. So they primed the population. Then they came up with a slogan that kind of mirrors a chant that we would use to stand on the steps of Parliament, stand on the steps of City Hall, stand on the steps of the precinct, and chant Black Lives Matter. That's what we thought it was. We didn't think that it was a business. And that business was the biggest deception point in the thing. But even though it was revealed to us that it was a business, the emotional connection that we had with the term black paired with the death, we no we stupidly and emotionally ran in and patronized the business, gave the business life. $82 million to be exact. I thought that's just what they said. It could have changed by now, could be more, could be less. Generated millions of dollars. How about that? I don't want to misspeak it, but last I heard it was something to that amount, right? So millions of dollars for sure. Then the people that was navigating that business, they were men, human beings that had perversions. So after that, the Black Lives Matter did another rally for the LGBT community, and it turned out even more people came, right? So this fattened up that wallet. This just fueled all of that. Inside of that, the wigs, the big wigs, the people that was playing the money game, inside of that, they were doing what they want with money, as people do when they make a successful business. So they bought cars, they bought sex, and they did stuff. Thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars went into this, hundreds of thousands went into that, and it's all exposed. And when it comes back to the people, we're so emotionally charged that that fact doesn't bother us. So then, Ye, who's in the folds of it, who sees it, says, "Damn, I see what they did. That emotional connection with Black Lives Matter. You know what? I'm gonna do the same thing." So he made it WLM, right? And everybody thought he was out of his mind because of that. And all he was doing a business move. I told you I live in a neighborhood where they call it the neighborhood. Not my neighborhood, but in my town, they have an area called the neighborhood, right? So this is all under the same thing, right? The emotional connection that's done to fatten up the wallet. And that Black Lives Matter, being a business, and all of that stuff like that, um, led me into the double talk. I already was into the double talk from understanding the reality through business law jargon, right? And having a legal dictionary to look up regular words and seeing the legal definition of these words versus what you think your heart, what you've been told it meant. And then you question, like, yeah, how do I get this definition that this meant this and this came from me? And you realize it's just word of mouth from people whose paradigm has that word as that because that's the reality that they live in and this is how they see it. But once you step out of that paradigm, though, that word now becomes like it has a whole different thing because you're like, whoa, I would never do that. Exchange my time for money? How much money are you giving me? $20 an hour? I can never do that. No, 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 no. Let me show you what I would do. Let me show you what I tell my kids. Let me show you this, a debit card. Oh, I would never use that. Oh, let me show you what I would do. You would put my real name and social security on something. I would never do that. Let me show you what I would do. And you see, what you don't understand is that everything I'm saying has an alternate to it. We need to look into the alternate. That's the curse. The curse is something that we've been doing forever, looking for different results. So this is the paradigm shift. Welcome. This is the matrix. It's time to wake up. Okay? So there's an emotional connection to words that we have, and depending on the hat that we have on, you can see these words differently and garner more out of the reality than just walking around here in neighborhood gentrified, being beat by business, being beat by the double tongue, not looking into it, easily entertained by fools on the television. You have to understand what's going on. Let's wake up, people. All right? This is not here to scare you. This is here to awaken you. The awaken process lets you know that these tools are at your fingertips, and you can use these tools too to become sovereign, to become God, to pull out of the matrix. There's something that we're doing wrong, something that we're looking at incorrectly. There's something that we keep doing every day that is stopping us from breaking the chains of poverty. This is what this is about. For me, for sure. And I know there's thousands of us, millions of us, hundreds of millions of us, more than 99, more than 98% of the population is under this mindset. So with that said, y'all, give y'all a strong year though. Hope everybody's prosperous. Hope everybody's shining. Thank y'all for tuning in. Thank y'all for not jumping off a building because it's hard being you. We already know. And for that said, I salute. I'm saying peace, power to the people. Your boy, Murk, signing off. One.